Hey, thanks for tuning in to Unfair Sports. While you're here, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Appreciate it. Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. I'm your host, Jay, with your favorite co-host, Jimmy. Special weekend episode coming to you on YouTube, as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please like, subscribe, rate us, review us, and give us 5 stars. You know, we deserve it. Yeah, just give us 5 anyway.
Yep.
All right, so on this special episode of Unfair Sports, we're going to jump right into the trade deadline. Some of the biggest moves, the trades that happened, the ones that didn't happen and should have happened, and the ones that almost did but didn't. We're going to jump into some of our notes in regards to that, as well as Team LeBron versus Team KD, which had a funny ending. A very funny ending on that one. So, hit us up on the Unfair Fan Line, 430-901-1906, and let us know what you think of the show. Give us your strongest opinions and provide us with your most frozen take. Let us know how much you hate Jimmy.
Love me.
Technically, I do. And you love me. And then,
hate you.
If you really feel like it, you can say how much you hate me, which you don't, and then how much you really don't love Jimmy.
You love me.
All right, so with that, dive right into it, shall we?
Jam Master Friday. What's going on?
It's Friday. What it do, baby? Yeah, man. It's a late Friday recording. We were trying to do this Thursday, but to me, work happened, so I was not able to provide you all with the which I really wanted for the on this trade stuff, man. Because Thursday was wild.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA lost their damn minds. At least it felt like it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, they need it to. Sometimes you have to lose your mind to find it, Jay. Now you said
sometimes you gotta lose yourself.
Right.
When you lose using the music,
don't
never let it go.
Don't. It's ironic that you quote that.
Oh,
yeah.
You gotta mumble it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You gotta lose yourself. Music, the moment you own it, you will never let it go. So as Eminem jumps into this, and we prepare for Eminem actually this weekend as we have the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
We didn't give our predictions, did we?
No, and I actually wrote that down. I know we talked about the 3 keys to victory for each team, but at some point we probably do need to give our predictions with a predicted score as well. I think that'd be fun, so we could do that.
Screw it. Let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
You ready for that?
I'm ready.
I think
I'm ready.
I know. All right, Jimmy, give me your best.
Woo! All right. I'm gonna take riding the Team of Destiny versus Bad Stafford narrative. I'm going to step out on a limb, like probably only 15% of America, because most of you have your head on straight somewhat and know not to do what I'm about to do. I'm going to take the Bengals to somehow, some way against the juggernaut in very Tampa, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl versus the Rams, where they're underdogs and wasn't supposed to win. I'm going to ride that wave. I'm going to say the Bengals win this game by a score of, we'll say 28-25, because Matt Stafford is going to throw 3 interceptions.
So we're going to get Stat Badford, Matt Badford in this one. Okay.
We are.
I like that because my prediction is close to that. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb as I look at the spread.
Mm-hmm.
The Bengals also win a Super Bowl.
Woo!
We get young Joey Burrow gets his first Super Bowl ring and his second year in the league. Does the unthinkable, covers the spread, wins the game. I'm going to put it at 28. Actually, I'm going to do 32 to 22.
Ooh, a double-digit
with the Bengals covering, and we get the over.
A double-digit Bengals victory?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you know, and I think
it's gonna be the same reason why you just said the pressure is gonna be too much for Stat Padford, and he's going to throw this game away.
Yeah, I think he's gonna play tight for the majority of the game. I mean, he knows he's supposed to win this game. He's got everything to win this game, every reason to win this game. What it could do for his legacy, how it could rewrite or essentially erase the majority of what we saw in Detroit. So with all that pressure on top of you in your own home stadium, I think that's going to be a bit too much for him. So I definitely
I can
agree
see
with
that. I can see that. But I think it's fascinating that everyone thinks that this does anything for his Detroit legacy when all he did was walk onto a team that's already been to the Super Bowl.
But, well, no, actually, I mean, and this actually helps your argument. This team is actually better than that team because they didn't have Von Miller, they didn't have Odell Beckham Jr., and Cooper Kupp had not emerged yet as the best receiver in the NFL.
Kupp didn't even play.
Okay, wait, but still, so you're not going to give him any credit whatsoever if the Rams do win this because of the team that he's walking into.
No.
Yeah. That's
no,
harsh.
not at all.
That's harsh. I mean, I see what you're saying. I can't go that far if the Rams do win. Well, it depends on how he plays as well. But that's harsh, but I understand.
I just say unless he throws for like 500 yards in this game and it's literally showing that it's all on his back, there's absolutely no reason for me to say that this was on Stafford, that Stafford did much of besides ride the coattail of a team that was already built to go to the Super Bowl. Like, they've been there.
Yeah.
They went to Super Bowl a few years ago. They've been knocking on the NFC Championship game every year. McVay has a very high percentage winning record as a coach. They were doing all this with Jared Goff. And y'all tell me Jared Goff sucks. So makes it a lot easier for me to go into my argument. So.
Right.
All right, good predictions. I like it. Let's jump right into the meat and taters and why we're actually here to give you guys a special little weekend episode for you to enjoy on your Saturday, because I know you're not going to be doing anything else. Y'all don't have lives. Jimmy doesn't have a job, so it's not like y'all going to be doing anything else. What happened?
Are you sure about that? If I don't have a job, how did I buy this microphone?
Jimmy, you have your ways, and we know stories.
Actually, Jay,
there's stories. You're infamous.
Actually, Jay, I did not buy this microphone. You gave it to me. I set you up for that, and you didn't knock it down.
I know, Jimmy. You have your ways.
But no, I do have a job. I was at the job today.
Theatricality and deception, powerful agents.
I was at the job.
To the uninitiated.
I walked in the door and I started working. I was at the job.
But Jimmy, I am initiated. Yeah. Aren't we?
I work in a building.
Members of the League of Shadows. Hey, trade went down. The trade that we all honestly thought was going to happen, but they kept lying to us and saying that it wasn't going to happen until it actually did happen. And then we're like, we knew this was going to happen. And why did you guys lie to us about it not happening? Your boy, James Harden, got out. Ben Simmons got out. Brooklyn Nets made a swap of disgruntled players, I guess you could say, as James Harden is headed to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons with an additional package going all together. Not sure how, you got Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, which is interesting. A two first round draft picks, one that's rights to defer, as well as a 2027 first rounder that's top 8 protected. And Philly gets James Harden and Paul Millsap. So as we knew, Millsap was going to be on the block anyway. They plan on getting rid of him. He hadn't been playing this year. James Harden has been up and down. And so it's very intriguing that this actual trade went down. Ben Simmons has been disgruntled. He's paid $20 million to not play for this team, which is even more fascinating to me. So, Jimmy, what did you think? Lord Jesus.
Bless you.
So, Jimmy, what did you think about this trade actually going down?
I thought this is one of the most fantastic, greatest trades I've ever seen in my entire life.
Fantastic, greatest thing.
Yeah, wow. Any type of adjective you can describe that's great about this trade. I think everything is great about this trade. This is everybody got what they wanted. I mean, everybody on the court, everybody who loves the game, the sports media, everybody wins because of this trade, especially the individual players, because each organization, you take two of the biggest disasters in your franchise's history and you turn it into potentially one of the greatest triumphs in your organizations and in the NBA's history. Because you take, let's start with James Harden. James Harden, we knew he had a 4-point game. This was about 3 weeks to a month ago. We could sort of tell that he was getting ready to check out because of issues primarily with Kyrie Irving. Him coming to this team at the beginning of last season, it ended up not being what he thought it was going to be. It ended up being probably worse than his worst nightmare as far as how this has turned out. So he was checking out. This hamstring injury was starting to linger. And we all knew what trump card he was going to hold in his bag because he used it in Houston in order to get it out of there. If they didn't trade him by this deadline, James Harden was going to balloon up about 30 to 35 pounds, just like he did before, and force them to do something, probably in the offseason. But he was going to just unravel more and more and more until he got what he wanted. Ben Simmons, it's been well documented. We've been talking about it since the playoffs last year, as far as the issues that he's been having both on and off the court that he's needed help for, and how that fed into the issues he was having with the team, as far as how a lot of this was fought and litigated through the media, and how Doc Rivers has his piece, and how he's beefing with Daryl Morey as Simmons, and then you have Joel Embiid in there as well. And surprisingly, it didn't become much of a distraction to Philadelphia on the court. They still have played pretty well despite all this, but either way, you had this hanging over the organization, this thing, this seeing a player go through this. We had never seen that before. So now you get rid of all of that, both teams, and you're able to have both players start fresh. So the first thing I thought is that these two bad disasters have now turned into potentially two great triumphs for these organizations. That was my first thought.
Okay. My first thought when I saw it was, why did we wait to the trade deadline? Why didn't we do this before?
Mm-hmm.
So like you mentioned, it was February 2nd, which is the last game that James Harden played. He put up the little 4-point
that was it.
thingamajig, and everybody realized that, oh, he's prepping for the trade deadline. And then at that point, he went to Houston. He's been in Houston this whole time, just waiting everything out. I read an article earlier today how he basically said to Morey and them, hey, man, don't believe everything you see. If there's a problem, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got on FaceTime, and he was like, yeah, go ahead and trade me. And it's funny because, so Dragonfly Jones had tweeted this out, and I thought it was fantastic. It's like a case of where, like, your homeboy's homeboy, who you're not really that cool with, gets in between you and your homeboy, and now you got beef with your boy because of the other homeboy that's on the side. That seems like this is what built out with all this whole situation. Yep. The Kyrie piece of him not playing, being part-time, and James coming to Brooklyn thinking that he's going to be with some, actual team, and he ends up looking like he did when he was in Houston. He didn't come to Brooklyn to be the one-man show. He's been mostly a one-man show there because either Kevin's hurt or Kyrie's hurt. And then when James gets hurt, KD's playing by himself. So for the most part, it's been one-man show for either KD or James, because not one time really has Kyrie been out there by himself. Well, I think he was out there last game now because KD's gone. And so I was just thinking to myself, what took so long? This experiment failed. As much as I was excited about seeing him go there, I knew it wasn't going to work. I mean, I said it last year. They weren't going to make it out the second round. Their problem is health. And their problem is still health. And it's going to continue to be health until we can see Kevin Durant at his peak, or they can get Kevin in bubble wrap and have him play only like 50 games a season, to where when the playoffs as he prepared for the playoffs, that's when they ramp him up. He's been on a downward spiral. Kyrie hasn't had, I don't think Kyrie has made a playoff run. He's made one playoff run since they won a championship in 2016, and that was once with Boston.
Yeah.
And Boston went to the conference championship without him, but they got eliminated in the second round with him. He ain't done it with Brooklyn because he ain't been healthy. So since those two have not been playing, what do you know what I'm saying? What do you expect, right? What do you expect? What do you expect James to do? Ain't nobody on the team. He didn't go there for nobody to be on the team, be playing. So it's fascinating to me that we are here now. And I'm still trying to figure out why it didn't happen before. That's honestly my biggest take. So with that, Jimmy, who do you think came out on top on it? Because that's basically what everybody's conversation is right now. It's who won the trade.
Well, part of why I think this is a great trade for both, I think both win, but they both win the trade at different times. Because if you look at what they're going to have on the court, let's start with the Sixers. All right, so you bring in James Harden. So you have a potential starting lineup of Tyrese Maxey, who Brooklyn did want, but they said no, absolutely not, because he's emerging into a good point guard for this team. He's part of the reason why they are where they are, even despite not having Ben Simmons. So Maxey, he's good. He's a starter. So you have a potential starting lineup of Tyrese Maxey, of James Harden, somehow Danny Green at the 3, even though I think Matisse Thybulle, who's a premier defender, should be in that spot, but nonetheless, he's the 3 projected. Tobias Harris, who's a good 16 to 18 points a game, and Joel Embiid, who's the front runner for the MVP. So I think that having Harden sets them up to win right now. So therefore, I think for the short term, or at least immediately with James Harden, once he gets his hamstring healthy, assuming it was really that messed up to begin with, I think that they're going to be set up to be to compete with Miami and Milwaukee, who both are still better than them right now. But we'll see how chemistry goes. We'll see how they look on the court. But I think for the short term for this season, the Sixers are set up for it. Long term, I think that the Nets are going to be set up for success because you would have a starting lineup, obviously, with Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, KD, and whoever else they mix in there. Again, you get Steph Curry, who is percentage-wise one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA these last 2 to 3 seasons, and Andre Drummond, who does have quite a bit of juice left. I know things didn't work out the way that we wanted it to in LA, but you put him, and he feels the need for them. They needed that size. They have not had somebody like him who can be big on the boards and big in shot blocking because they gave away Jared Allen and Karis LeVert in part to get James Harden there. So I think long-term, given that how the vaccine mandate there in New York City has affected Kyrie Irving's ability to play, you think about whether or not that will be lifted, if so, when, and therefore how that could have a positive impact on the other half of Kyrie actually being able to show up and play in the home games. And then Ben Simmons with his issues both on and off the court and his mental health issues, you would think that by the start of next season, a lot of that would have been resolved as well, so that you could begin the season fresh with KD, who many still believe is the best player in the NBA right now, or it's a fight between him and Giannis, Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving. Ben Simmons, one of the best defenders in the league. So I think starting next season forward, the thing is set up for Brooklyn to be successful. But for right now, I think the Sixers with Harden are ready to win right now.
I can see that. So I need sports fans to understand one thing about the construction of these rosters. Everybody flipped out about the way Brooklyn was becoming a super team and everybody was going there. People flipped out about the Lakers acquiring a whole bunch of people. People were flipping out about Philly potentially getting folks, blah, blah, blah. I hope you all have realized that being good on paper don't mean shit. Like it don't mean anything because it's been proven.
Yeah.
Unless you're healthy, and that's we say, well, they haven't been healthy. Exactly. That's kind of the problem. When you put a whole bunch of old dudes together, usually somebody's back's going to go out. Somebody's hammy's going to start hurting. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a problem with a calf. An ankle's going to get twisted. It always happens with your old dudes. And that's where we're at right now. A whole bunch of old dudes trying to team up and get these chips. And they can't get these chips because they too dang old. And so all these young teams, these teams that are right there peaking at the perfect time, are just knocking them off. Milwaukee's, Miami, they're still pretty young for the most part, and they're doing their thing. I don't know if Boston's ever going to figure it out, which is like the weirdest thing in the world is that they just cannot figure it out. But we're at this point, man. So please stop thinking that super teams really are messing up the league when most of the time super teams lead to other teams actually flourishing. How do you think Phoenix flourished? Because, the other super teams started to be trying to get built and it didn't work out. Besides the fact that Golden State's hurt. Well, so, anywho,
you know what?
I think that Philly's going to end up the best in all of this. Mm-hmm. I don't see Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn will be fine with Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant. They're going to have to get rid of Kyrie Irving.
Why?
I don't think that Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving is going to be able to coexist.
Mm-hmm. Because by nature, both point guards.
Ben Simmons is a facilitator.
Yeah.
He's a facilitator, and that's the only thing he can do. Like literally, he can't. We've seen he can't even make layups anymore.
Well,
it's all in his head.
So you don't have any. You don't have
Kyrie's gonna sit there dribbling.
Right. You don't have any faith that Kyrie can play off the ball.
No. He already hated. He hated it in Cleveland. He didn't look. You can tell he didn't like it when he was in Boston. In the moments he had to, and he wanted the ball. And as of right now, in Brooklyn, it doesn't seem like he does well off the ball. James was running the point, and he stepped back to be the number 3 guy. So now Kyrie's got to be number 1 because KD's out. How is that going to mesh with him and Ben Simmons if Ben Simmons doesn't shoot the ball and people can double team Kyrie because Ben Simmons don't shoot the ball?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Like, what big man have you really seen Kyrie set up for plays? Andre Drummond needs a guy that can do pick and roll and throw some oops. Ben can do that. Do we think Kyrie can? Kyrie's king ISO. I mean, sorry to say it, he is. But he's really good at it. That's the thing, is that just because I'm knocking him for the way he played doesn't mean he's not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's great at it.
See,
but it doesn't lead to wins like that.
But the problem with Brooklyn is because, I mean, with a talent like Kyrie Irving, you at least give it an earnest attempt to try to make it work. But the problem with Brooklyn is, and this maybe is or isn't his fault, is part of the problem is Steve Nash. Because a big three like this, and this gives this sheds a new light on Phil Jackson and the coaching job that he did with the egos and stars that he had to work with. Like you said, like, you can look great on paper, but if you don't have someone there to pull it all together and to get guys to do what they're supposed to do, then it's not going to work no matter who you have. So I think Steve Nash, being a rookie coach last year, second-year coach now, obviously having to work with all this and maneuver all this, when Kyrie Irving at the beginning of last season already emasculated him and said that I can coach this team and KD can coach this team. I think that's part of the reason why they struggled so much with the big three that they had when Harden was there. Even though they played 16 games together between the regular season and the one playoff stint that they had, they were 13-3. So they were good when they were on the court, which goes back to health, I know. But I've not seen anything out of Steve Nash that makes me believe he can hold it all together. And I guess by definition, with three All-Stars, just trading one All-Star for another, he still is in a position where he has to prove that he can pull it all together. When he's going to be able to do that, as far as the health of the team and then being on the court together, especially in time for the playoffs, since teams have 20-something games left, so there's not much of the season left after the All-Star break. I think if you had a veteran coach, and I know there are a few of them who have actually been consistently successful. You have very few Greg Popovich's, et cetera, or even Doc Rivers for that matter, if you want to count him. I think that's really going to hurt him this season, and that's why I couldn't project them to be successful for this season as opposed to the Sixers, who have Doc Rivers. And I know a lot of people knock Doc Rivers for the series that he's lost down 3-1 or his record in Game 7.
Yeah, but he's been plural, sir. Plural.
Yeah, plural. But he's been doing this with multiple teams in multiple places for quite a while. 10, 12, 13, 14 years. So you could trust a coach like Doc Rivers to pull a big three together, as opposed to a coach like Steve Nash, who was already emasculated and is still green, still new.
Okay, so let's look at these some of these other trades then that went down. I mean, you made a good point with your boy Doc here, but we had a lot of stuff go down in trade deadline. It was a lot of activity that we all definitely thought was a good was some good stuff. First off, let's look at the one I think was the biggest surprise was Washington getting Chris Snaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. I thought that was an interesting move, especially now that Bradley Beal is done for the year. Like, what are they thinking, and what was, I know what Dallas was thinking, but what was Washington thinking?
I have no idea. Well, I mean, okay, so Washington thinks, all right, Bradley Beal is, so far, he's been loyal to the soil. He's like the Damian Lillard of the Eastern Conference, very loyal to us. So when he comes back next season, we're going to have Kyle Kuzma, who's played good basketball for us. We'll have a healthy Kristaps Porzingis, who's about a 19.8 rebound player. He's still the unicorn-ish. And we think that with, especially with the coaching job that JB Bickerstaff has done, and he has done a good coaching job this year, despite the difficulties that he's had and not having his number one star there with him. I think that they believe that they could compete for just barely getting out of the play-in spot with those three players if they stay healthy. So I think that they believe Kristaps Porzingis can actually help them win games, and that they don't have any plans to move him anytime soon. That's the best that I can do as far as what they were thinking.
Yeah, I could totally. Yeah, I guess for me, the thing I'm looking at is that, of course, like I said, I know what Dallas was thinking. They need another scorer. They need somebody that can go on the other side of Luka and score.
Mhm.
This gives them a score, and Spencer can score. He can go get a bucket. If you really need a bucket, he can go find a way to get a bucket. He proved it when he was basically the top guy for the Nets pre-Kyrie and even at the beginning of Kyrie. He can go get those buckets before injury. So that made sense. But I was still trying to figure out, I guess this is a way to try to hopefully build around Bradley Beal
Mhm.
since he still hasn't tried to force his way out. Dog, force your way out, man. It's just it's time to go. It ain't working. Everybody was hyped. I saw a lot of people, especially Wizards fans, they cracked me up. They were super hyped about, this season, the way the Wizards were starting. I was like, all right, they're gonna fall down. They're gonna fall like they normally do. And what happened? They fell. So that made sense. Got you. Honestly, pre-trade deadline, we didn't really talk about this,
Mhm.
but dog, McCollum?
Yeah. McCollum to the Pels, right?
Yes.
Now that is interesting.
Yes.
And again, I feel like it's like the same story over and over again about what this team can look like if they were all healthy. Because this team, if they're all healthy, you have Devontae Graham, you have CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, who's been an all-star before, as has Zion Williamson, the face of the franchise, and Jonas Valanciunas. I mean, that's a pretty formidable starting lineup. I don't know what their bench looks like, and I cannot think of who their coach is. And they have continually underperformed. So you have a lot working against you in New Orleans. But that could be an interesting starting lineup to throw out there in the Western Conference with the teams that are at the top as far as the Suns and the Warriors, and the teams that are starting to emerge, like Memphis.
Right.
So, I mean, that makes sense. I was surprised. Well, I was a bit. Well, no, actually, I wasn't surprised that Portland traded him because since Dame has been injured, Anthony Simons has had to play more minutes, and they see now that he could be a really legit scorer next to Damian. So that made them more comfortable with moving CJ McCollum to the Pelicans.
Yeah, that makes sense. Of course, they acquired Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, and Keon Johnson from the Clippers like 4 days before.
Right.
So basically, everything Portland seems like they're doing is they're truly trying to build around Damian Lillard, who hasn't really played this season at all, health, and hopes of keeping him or wooing him to want to stay. But man, Dame, it might be time for you to do the same thing, dog. Just let them go ahead and rebuild with somebody else. You don't know what it's going to look like in the future. Now, I like Dame staying, and I appreciate the fact that he wants to be the loyal guy. I'm going to stay here and win a championship. That doesn't bother me if your team just keeps showing year after year that you don't have the right pieces to get you there. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave after my contract. If a guy says they're leaving after their contract, I never have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's the guys that usually force their way out before. Because I think Dame's contract should be up either this next year or the year after. And he can just say he's not going to resign. And at that point, they're gonna trade him because they're going to want to get something out of him. So that makes the most sense. So I don't know. I don't think Dame's gonna.
I mean, we were down on them even before this season. Like, I remember us talking about this before NBA free agency and how the aftermath of that was they couldn't do anything. They couldn't move anything. They had no draft picks. They did absolutely nothing to upgrade that roster.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And it's so funny how the running joke for Portland is they broke up the Oklahoma City Thunder. They ended that franchise, and now their franchise is going to be completely ended as well. So, I think there's two more trades in here that I thought were really, really intriguing and could really be impactful. Here's one that I'm really looking at: is this Bucks getting this in this 14 trade, getting Serge Ibaka and 2 future first, and then shipping out Dante DiVincenzo, Trey Lyles, and Justin Jackson to Sacramento, basically sending them to the team where everyone dies. The Clippers getting Rodney Hood and Semi Ojale, and then Marvin Bagley III is gone to the Pistons?
Former number 3 pick, Marvin Bagley.
Wait, I thought that he was going to Milwaukee. Ooh. Yeah. I don't know if this was that good of a move for them.
For who?
For Milwaukee. I thought it was, but I think Serge has lingering age issues.
Lingering age issues. Yeah, he does, but but he's a veteran who can still help you out with help side defense. He he's still got some good basketball left in him, and they won't be asking him to do much. I don't think, especially when the playoffs. Matter of fact, when the playoffs roll around and when you shrink your rosters to 8 players, he may not actually even play that much. To be honest with you, I think a big part of the reason why they got Serge, honestly, a big part of the reason why they got Serge is they want somebody to be able to give some valuable rest to Bobby Portis, who has played really well this season. I saw a stat the other day during a Bucks game where they said when Bobby Portis hits 2 or more threes, the Bucks are like 19-3. So they play really well whenever he gets it going offensively. He's had something like 15 points, 8 rebounds. He's given them quite a bit more than what they would normally have with Brook Lopez, who's out with injury. So having to deal with one punch Bobby in addition to the core three that they have with Giannis, Holiday, and Chris Middleton, and everybody's favorite Duke Blue Devil Grayson Allen, he won't be asked to do much for the Bucks, but he definitely helps them out.
I can see that. I can see that. That one, yeah. I can see the help on the weak side, and you made some good points on that. I'm just,
I think Bagley would have been better long term. Yeah, I think Bagley would have been better, but I don't know. They wanted Serge.
Yeah, they could have molded him into something special potentially. I mean, maybe he could have actually reached his potential there because it does seem like the biggest problem he has been coaching, and we know how bad Sacramento has been at hiring coaches, players, general managers, basically everything. They've just been awful. So it kind of makes sense. And then the Hornets getting Montrezl Harrell. Like Washington basically feels like they just started dumping everybody. And so they basically brought in Montrezl Harrell in the Laker trade. Now they shipped him out. And they got Ish Smith and Vernon Carey Jr. in the second rounder. I think that's a good move for the Hornets. I like that for the Hornets. It just adds an additional piece that can be a defender, cleanup guy, all of that. It makes sense.
Well, that's exactly right. He represents, just like Serge Ibaka did, something that you really love and appreciate about players, and that's size and length. He gives them that, Jay. And
Jimmy's favorite thing.
Yeah, your favorite thing. And I jokingly said this. One of my coworkers, we were talking. One of my coworkers, we were talking about this trade, and we said, you know what Trez Harrell can be? He can be, and every team needs this. He can be that goon that's out there to protect LaMelo Ball, because now the Ball's an all-star and he's really starting to emerge. A lot of guys are going to be testing his gangster. So you need somebody like Harrell out there who, can let them know exactly that's not going to fly. So I think that's with Trez. Man, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is just, you can maybe tell me this, if this is just bad fits, but he went from being sixth man of the year, top 3 sixth man of the year, 20 points, almost 8-9 rebounds, to not getting the minutes that he deserved in LA, to getting shipped to Washington, who then shipped him to Charlotte. I mean, has he really fallen off that far that quick, or are these teams just treating him unfairly and using him wrong?
I think they're using him wrong. I mean, looking at the numbers, I'm looking at here on ESPN, they actually had some stuff on it. And he's posting a career high 684 true shooting percentage, which is dramatically better than he was when he won Sixth Man of the Year 2 years ago. So he bounced back when he got to the Wizards. The Lakers just didn't use him right. It wasn't a good fit. But he still produces, and we know although that LaMelo Ball likes to throw alley-oop, so this is actually a really good scenario for him and LaMelo in that. So adding him with Bridges, Washington, and keeping kind of a small ball type setup, I think that's going to help Charlotte be able to make their run. And like you said, he's kind of the goon that's going to be able to protect LaMelo from people trying to act too familiar with them. You got to let them know, hey, we ain't playing that game. Right, I like that about that. I like that. So yeah, it's just, I think that's the biggest key piece with him, was that teams just weren't using him right. They didn't know how to place him within the roster properly. So
they should do. I think they should start him, because right now, I want to say Miles Plumlee. I get them confused. Not to be confused with Mason Plumlee. He's their starter, and I mean he's good, but I think it would be a more interesting lineup if he was in there, because then you put him with, like I said, Bridges, with Ball, with Scary Terry, and I think Oubre Jr. has been starting, which he's good when he starts, over Gordon Hayward, who has a badly sprained ankle. out indefinitely. So I think you put him out there. I mean, that gives you another score, another rebound, another tough guy, and I think he can probably give you more on the offensive end than Plumlee can. So I think it'd be interesting if I just really wanted to see him as a starter somewhere. I felt LA should have done it. They didn't, and no one's done that. I would love to see him be a starter in Charlotte.
We'll see. We'll see what that looks like there in Charlotte. So, okay. We got to get into this trade that didn't happen. So I read the articles that Chris Hayes over at Yahoo wrote. I think Vinny Goodwill also wrote something about this, how the Lakers were about to trade Russell Westbrook back to the Rockets, where he came from on via Washington, for John Wall. And who else you said?
Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon, that's who it was. Eric Gordon, John Wall for Russell Westbrook. And the thing that stopped the trade was a draft pick. What the hell was Rob Pelinka thinking?
Well, Jake, to ask what the hell Rob Pelinka's been thinking, you're asking it too late, because we should have been asking this probably a year ago, last season.
Or when we were asking it from the beginning and people tried their hardest to defend and say, no, he is so much better than we think. No. And they won that championship, and everybody's like, oh, well, see, now you're not questioning Pelinka. And they've been hot garbage since.
Because the moves they made after that with Trez Harrell, with Dennis Schroeder, the fact they were going to offer him, that they offered Schroeder 4 years, $80 million, and we can now see, since he thankfully fumbled the bag himself, and we can now see that he was not worth that. He fudged all that up. He fudged up bringing in Russell Westbrook and making this the oldest roster that anybody has ever seen. And now he fudges this up too, over not making this trade because of this draft pick. That's not going to mean anything, that he would have fudged up anyway. So, I mean, this is a horrible. It's because Rob Pelinka that's not his name. That's not who he is. This is not what he truly does for a living. Rob Pelinka is Rob Lowe. He's an actor. This is like sort of live performance art. He's making you think he's Rob Pelinka when you can look at his damn face and tell that is not Rob Pelinka. That is actually Rob Lowe, the actor. He's not really a GM. That's why he's doing these things. What GM with half a brain would do part of what he's doing. So that's the reason why, Jay. That's not Rob Pelinka. That is an actor. That is why he's doing this.
I mean, supposedly Rob Pelinka said that there was an alignment between him, LeBron, and Anthony Davis to not make a move, and then Anthony Davis and LeBron James said that's totally false. We never had that conversation. Like, what are we doing here? LA, what are we doing here?
No, it's even worse than that.
What are we doing?
It's even worse than that, because there might actually be a shadow GM within the organization. Have you heard the name Linda Rambis?
Yes.
Yeah, which I believe wife of Kurt Rambis, who's been consulted and been involved with the Lakers front office. Nobody knows who's really calling the shots. I'm like, damn, like maybe y'all were better off keeping Magic Johnson as the GM, because at least you knew who actually was calling those shots. It was, with him and Jeannie Buss, with a good partnership between them. But obviously he had other plans. I mean, it's just moves like this, and this goes back to Brooklyn as well. You can just tell looking at these organizations where you have different people making different decisions with different agendas, and that they are not on the same page, and that this is what ends up happening with the moves that they make, and that this affects what we see on the court. So you can tell which organizations are buttoned up because nobody really ever talks about them. Phoenix Suns, they finally got buttoned up, even though Robert Sarver, he's actually got some legal workplace culture issues that he needs to be worried about.
And he's still cheap as shit, yeah.
All the top teams, the Milwaukee Bucks, Pat Riley and the Heat, even post LeBron and the Big Three, have still always been buttoned up. You can tell by these teams when they have their stuff together and the teams that don't. And it's just painful watching the teams that don't make move after move that just doesn't make sense, and that is not going to work.
It never does. So, okay. So with that, we gotta laugh at Did you watch the draft?
Yes, I did.
The All-Star draft.
Yes, I did.
I love the All-Star draft.
Yeah.
As we talked about it when it first was introduced, the only way it would have been better is if the players were all there and they picked them right before the game.
Yeah.
That would have made it like you basically have your players in a neutral color All-Star pair of shorts, and then you have the jerseys in both home and away. and then you hand them whichever one they're going to play in before the game.
Right.
That would make this so much better. Give me live chaos, because the fact that Kevin Durant refused to pick James Harden, he picked Rudy Gobert and had an elaborate explanation. And the best part was watching LeBron lose it because he knew what he was doing. He's like, man, I gotta control that laugh. Holding the clipboard. And of course, the TNT team is always making jokes. And so they're clowning. Exactly. And so it was perfectly set up. You gotta watch the YouTube video to see Jimmy's face on that. But it was perfect. It's everything you can imagine. And it's like, what the hell? He picked Rudy Gobert. After last year, they made jokes about Utah Jazz players and how nobody played with Jazz players on NBA Jam or any game.
Which hurt my feelings
and so you have to pick them last.
Yeah, that hurt my feelings personally when LeBron said that.
I mean, Jimmy, you're like the only person I know that's actually Karl Malone.
Yeah, I'm the only Karl Malone fan that I've ever met. Yeah, this is when I was a kid, when I was younger.
Yeah. I still question things about you.
Never mind that he's number 2 all time scorer in the NBA, but that's neither here nor there. No one cares about that.
No, not at all. Actually, it's Karl Malone. That's what it is.
Great player.
But
he was unstoppable. Now, I know he was a bit of a dirty player, but Karl Malone was virtually unstoppable. Now, I mean, he couldn't survive. Sir. He couldn't survive in today's game. He probably would be Montrezl Harrell.
Karl Malone.
What?
We're not defending Karl Malone right now.
No, we're not. We're not doing it. Again, as I got older and I learned some things about him more so in his personal life, that did hurt, and I hated seeing that. But this is 13, 14-year-old me, huge Karl Malone fan.
Which is still hilarious to me. Yeah. He had Larry Johnson right there.
Yeah, I had a good buddy who was a Larry Johnson fan. Like, I had this group of friends. I was a Malone fan. He was a Larry Johnson fan. This one cat, he was a Dennis Rodman fan. You know, Tim was always an MJ fan. So we just kind of had another buddy who
used to rock purple together.
Yeah, no, I had another buddy who was a Barkley fan as well. So we kind of had it all sort of spread around as far as our favorite players.
That's all three. I used to rock purple together. I mean, you got Jazz. You've got the Hornets who wore purple, and then you have the Suns who has a purple variant. I mean, there you go.
I think of it that way, but that is true. Yeah. Now, growing up, who was your hold on, I have to know this. 11, 12, 13. Growing up, who was your favorite NBA player?
Clyde Drexler.
I think you've told me that. Yeah.
I was a Clyde the Glide fan. I enjoyed him. I like Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon were my two guys. And then when he got traded to Houston, I was in heaven because I followed him and I got a Rockets jersey of Clyde Drexler.
Yeah.
The old moon ones back when they used to make the hockey jersey look.
I remember those.
The planet with all I used to draw them and stuff, the jersey logos, because that was my hobby on the side. But I loved Clyde. Just loved his game. I thought he was great. He was also like an arch nemesis of Jordan, so it made it even more sweet for me to see him go against each other.
Yeah.
Sucks we didn't win the championship because Jordan cheated. We won't talk about that today. We're going to get to that point. But the fact that Kevin Durant threw all those subtile shots, man,
it was great.
You can tell that man, their whole friendship is deteriorated. It's done.
Yeah, well,
like I thought they had something special, like back in the Oklahoma City days. But I think James not re-signing at that point was the first thing. And I think when he got him there to try to see if it would be a redemption piece, this is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, I think in hindsight now, we see that Kevin Durant and James Harden were cool, but Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are tight. So I think that Kyrie Irving, if this had been reversed and it was Kyrie Irving doing this and not James Harden, he would have been hurt a lot more by that. But James Harden got his way out of the last place where he was. So why is anybody surprised that he does it again at, the first, second, third sign of trouble? I mean, it's all Kyrie related, but still, like, there's nothing to be surprised by. So yeah, I mean, but it was funny. And the TNT, they did this draft with the TNT guys, Ernie, Chuck, Kenny the Jet, and Shaq, and that's part of what made it even better. They did a fantastic job in terms of adding more entertainment and more commentary to this as they were realizing, because they realized probably midway through them picking the reserves what was actually happening, and then they started throwing in like subtle comments and subtle shots about him not picking James Harden. And LeBron was in on it too, because he wanted to see how long this would go on before Kevin Durant would pick him, which he didn't.
So in LeBron's defense, he probably did. He was probably playing Captain Petty like everybody else. But
Yeah.
the fact that he had the clipboard and he thought that James was hurt and he didn't know that James was gonna play was quite interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
That the timing was perfect because, of course, James has been hurt since the second,
Mhm.
and he's supposedly not going to play this weekend. They're not going to see him start up until next week.
Yeah.
But it's funny that he had that clipboard. He was ready to say, "Oh, is James is hurt, isn't he?" Technically, yes, you're right. So is that so? LeBron, you're telling us you didn't pick him because you thought he was hurt and he wasn't going to play?
Mhm.
Why didn't you pick James?
Right.
It also leads me back to the old debate that we had with Oklahoma City is that if they would have kept Harden instead of Westbrook, the team would have been different. It doesn't seem like it's that way now.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't seem like that. So,
Poor Jane.
oh man, that was fun. That was fun, Jimmy. That was fun. We got to do this more often. Get back on our 2 times a week cycle.
Mhm.
Give you guys some good weekend super hot fire.
Oh, I remember those
for you
days.
guys to. You say what?
I remember those days. 2 shows a week.
Oh yeah, we have to get back to it. Now we're basically 100% remote. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Do it.
Why not? Why not? We're gonna get back on it. So we appreciate y'all tuning in, listening, and watching. Full video will be on YouTube probably first thing in the morning here on Unfair Sports as well as on the podcast. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, rate us and review us, give us 5 stars. You guys deserve it. And just go ahead and give us 5 anyway.
Yep.
So for my Bobby Wendy, thank you so much for tuning in here on this Friday night to help us out. For Jimmy, we'll have our show as usual on Tuesday. We'll get everything recorded Monday night. Post Super Bowl reactions, probably a little bit of NBA reaction. Talk more OU recruiting. Like I said, most of the videos we'll have on the YouTube channel will be OU related, college ball related, recruiting related, because it's freaking awesome. We're having fun doing that.
Yeah, we are.
And then we'll have most of our content like this. We'll collaborate and talk a lot more just on the podcast and stuff. So with that, we will chop it up with y'all in a few days. Peace.